who's the former communications advisor to the foreign minister of the Ukraine, to talk about that in a little bit more detail. Cormac, thanks for joining me.
Russell, thank you very much for having me on. And can I start by just wishing a happy Christmas to you and all the boys and girls who are working hard on Christmas Eve.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we are all here. The office here is packed, so thank you very much. We appreciate that. And the same back at you, Cormac. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just very quickly, just explain your previous role as former communications advisor. So were you effectively a PR guy for the Ukraine?
I guess you could call it that. I was, at the time, I was a deputy director of communications in the Cabinet Office, so I was a senior civil servant. There had been a pledge given by, I think it was Philip Hammond actually, when he was Foreign Secretary, to Pavlo Klimkin when he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to send a Brit with an Irish accent over to help them out with their communications. That was in 2015. It turned out it coincided with my time in the Cabinet Office. I was asked to go. I saw this job, I applied for it, and I got it. I had a particular interest in Eastern Europe and in the journey that former communist states were on, because I had, at that stage, I'd been invited out to speak in about 12 of them on.
We've got to say President Zelensky has done an amazing job of his personal PR. I mean, I'm not saying it's just PR. I mean, there's certainly an authenticity to it. But the way he's conducted himself over the last 330 days or thereabouts has been pretty exemplary, don't you think?
Well, you know, first of all, he's a professional communicator. He's an actor and a comedian.
Well, a comedian, ironically enough.
A comedian and an actor of...
Nothing about this Ukraine crisis is funny, of course, Cormac.
No, it's not. But, you know, like a certain Ronald Reagan many years ago, who, along with Margaret Thatcher, were the two people more responsible than anybody else for bringing about the downfall of the Soviet Union. I mean, Reagan was somebody who used his acting skills. Zelensky has done this, but Volodymyr Zelensky has done much, much more. And I will be the first to say he has surprised me, because until this happened, I really didn't know what to expect from the guy. I'd never worked for him. He came to power after
He got
I left.
elected almost by accident, Cormac, didn't he? He didn't expect to be elected as president. As you say, previously an actor and a comedian. It was almost he stood in protest and ended up becoming president. It's like one of those films that you see, you know, where someone gets accidentally elected.
Well, I mean, there was a film where he played the part of the Ukrainian president, but when you say Russell, when you say accidentally elected, he got 73% of the popular vote in an election which was very, very closely invigilated by Western observers.
When I say accidentally, I don't mean it with any disrespect to Cormac. I mean, what I mean is I think he probably stood as a protest. Maybe didn't quite expect to get 70% of the vote against the sitting president.
I really can't comment on. I mean, I mean, you may well be right. And I mean, speaking for myself, I had no great view of Volodymyr Zelensky one way or the other before this horrible war was committed against Ukraine on the 23rd, 24th of February this year. But, you know, I mean, he has been Churchillian to use a comparison that Brits will appreciate and people like me will appreciate. I mean, that, you know, when the Americans offered to get him and his family to safety, because the Russians at this stage expected to take Kyiv in 3 days. They were parachuting in groups of their very, very best, most lethal special forces to hunt him down and kill him. Yeah. And he said, I don't need a ride, I need ammo. And on the second or the third night, I will never forget him appearing, and I could recognize exactly where it was, in front of the presidential building, out in the middle of Kyiv, with all his minister for defense, his foreign minister, all the generals around him. And the one word, I never got great Ukrainian, but the one word in Ukrainian was tut. Tut means here. And he kept repeating the word,
I'm here.
Tut, I'm here.
I'm staying.
You know, Reznikov is here. Yeah. Zaluzny is here.
Well, I was going to say, he's you know, it looks like he's set to be president for life if he wants to be. Having said that, you made a Churchill reference, of course, just now, and Churchill famously was booted out in 1946 as the Prime Minister after the Second World War, so hopefully it won't happen to Zelensky. You think that he's genuine about this? This isn't just some kind of one man, I want to make myself look good in all this crusade. It isn't just PR. You think his intentions are absolutely,
Russell,
in his heart, he's just thinking about the people and getting through this this war, this crisis.
Yeah. Russell, it's way beyond personal PR. I mean, this, you know, and that is, it's the leadership that he has shown that has helped to put steel in the spine of the Ukrainian people, which has put steel in the spine of the Ukrainian army, and that there is absolutely, you know, no doubt in my mind about that at all. And you know, I made friends for life. I was out in Ukraine working for the previous foreign minister, Pavlo Klimkin, for 2 years between 16 and 18.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've nothing up my sleeve. I fell in love with this country, and it means a lot to me, and I made friends for life, which is why this is probably somewhere around my 150th TV or radio interview since January.
You've got no vested interest because you're not working for that administration anymore. You're just
I have no vested interest.
Because of your
I resigned. I took early retirement as a civil servant at the end of 2018.
Yeah.
I work for myself as a trainer, and I do other things in the area of communications, which has been my profession all of my life. But I fell in love with Ukraine.
Yeah.
I have lifelong friends. I have one of my closest Ukrainian friends staying with me for Christmas until the new year. So it's very close to me because this guy has family and friends, and there are reasons because of the job that he does. He needs to be outside Ukraine. So this matters to me.
And it certainly
the other thing, if I can just
what's happening to it doesn't deserve.
If I can just say, and you can check the books, I don't get a penny for coming on an interview at 5 o'clock on a Christmas Eve. I do this.
And Cormac, believe me, sincerely, we appreciate it very, very much. You're obviously passionate about the country because of your previous involvement. Can I just dig a little bit deeper then? You might not be able to answer
Absolutely.
this, but there will be people listening to this that have seen, you know, Zelensky and Sunak together recently, Zelensky and Biden. You know, obviously the conversation of the day when they meet will be about money and weapons and, you know, resources that are provided to Zelensky and his armed forces to try and fight the onslaught from the Russians. And look, they're undoubtedly doing a much better job, as you alluded to, than people expected them to. But I guess the question has to be, you know, we're £3.8 billion in, I think, as a British taxpayer. Where does it go?
Well, look, there's two ways I can answer that. The first is, although I'm Irish, I've lived in this great country for 36 years. Represented the country in Britain, yes, in Britain, in London, for longer than I was. I've lived for a greater period of my life in Britain now than, you know, I lived in Ireland. Although I'm a proud Irishman, but I'm also very, very proud of Britain and of the very small role that I played. Yeah. Look, I think there's two things that I would say. We have given massive support, and I'm afraid I need to say to people we need to do even more, because Putin will not stop until he is stopped. But the two things that I would say is, one, we have a moral obligation to support a country of over 40 million people, you know, innocent, peaceful, democratic country in the heart of Europe.
At any cost?
Where genocide is being carried out. Well, I believe so. So the first thing I would say is we have a moral obligation. Mm-hmm. But secondly, this wolf will come to our door. You know, Russia has been waging a hybrid war against the West, against all of us, for at least the last 8-9 years since the illegal annexation of Crimea and the invasion of Donbass, arguably before then. We know, for example, that we had the attempted murder of Sergei Skripal and his daughter in Salisbury in 2018, and indeed I worked very closely on that because it crossed over with me being in Ukraine and doing my bit on behalf of our government and coming back to the Cabinet Office and working on it.
But Cormac, you say that, you know, Putin has been severely weakened. I mean, the fact that, as we talked about just now, he thought that he could take Ukraine in 3 days, and we're now 330 days on, and he certainly hasn't done that. He's lost 100,000 troops. He's lost about 50 generals. You know, it's even made him fall down the stairs and wet himself, it seems. So, you know, it does seem that Putin actually would, you know, even the madman that some would say he is, frankly, he wouldn't be so stupid as now to start making a move towards, let's say, I don't know, Moldova or Poland. So, you know, you say that it'll come to our door. I'm not sure that's as true now as perhaps we might have thought that was 5 or 6 months ago, do you?
Well, I hope it's not. And I hope that, you know, Russia started out at the start of this war as the second most powerful military on the face of the earth. Yeah. I think everybody recognizes now that they are the second most powerful military in Ukraine. You know, as you quite rightly said, in fact, I just looked at the figures, the estimates from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense today. 101,430 deaths are the estimate, you know, which is massive. The whole Soviet Union only lost 15,000 in 10 years in Afghanistan. That's over.
I get that, but I do want to talk about this money thing. And I know that you're not the guy that's taking the money and spending the money, but 3.8 billion quid is an awful lot of money. And yes, some of it is armaments, and let's hope those armaments are indeed going to the right place. But you know, there have been questionable rumours around, you know, money being invested in crypto and then crypto crashing and so on. Completely unsubstantiated. You know, I'll say that, you know, from the off. But where's the scrutiny? Where's the accountability whereby the British public can be satisfied that that £3.8 billion and counting, because there'll be more, to your point, is actually going to the right place?
Okay, let me say two things about that. One, I've heard the rumours about going to crypto and the money being, and you know, corruption and the money going the wrong. There is, as you quite rightly said, Russell, absolutely no evidence to back that up whatsoever. The second thing I would say on accountability, you're absolutely right. The British people, and for the sake of this, I'm a British taxpayer, so I want to know where my money is being spent as well, do need to know that the best use is being made of that money.
Yes.
I'm here to make the case that we need to spend it, but you're quite right. Now, the Prime Minister announced only about, a week and a half ago that he is going to do a major review or audit of how the money has been spent and how effective that has been.
I wonder if the British public will ever see that.
I think that's a very good...
I wonder if the British public will ever see that.
Well, I mean, that's something that's kind of, if you like, above my pay grade. I hope they will. There is no point in a democracy in carrying out an audit like that. And I'll be the first to say, a lot of people thought, oh, this is a sign that maybe the Brits are taking a backward step. I have seen no sign that the Brits and the British government are taking a backward step. But I would be the first to support a detailed audit for two things. One, so we can prove that the money is actually being spent where it's meant to be spent, but also in a chaotic war situation which is changing. I think, you know, Britain, which still has, we may have a very small army, we still have one of the finest, most effective armed forces on the face of the earth, and I've worked with many of these guys. Yeah. We need to know, we need to have the evidence to show that that money has been spent in the right way and the right military systems. So
and that also that Rishi Sunak isn't just jumping on the Boris Johnson bandwagon of publicity, because of course one of the first things that Rishi Sunak did of course once he was elected Prime Minister was to rush over to Kiev to stand side by side with Zelensky for a photo opportunity. Cormac Smith, thank you very much indeed. You've been a brilliant guest. Thank you very much. Very informative.